Hello, everybody. I'm Tony Beadle, President and CEO of Rockport Music. We're here today with Tom Burger, who is currently a board emeritus of Rockport Music. However, he was chair of the board and a board member, and perhaps one of the most important moments in Rockport Music history after the founding of Rockport Music, and that was the building and opening of the Shalin Liu Performance Center in 2010. And so, Tom, why don't you start by telling us a little bit how you first knew about Rockport Chamber Music Festival and what attracted it to you in the RAA?
Well, one of my old girlfriends, this was pre-Andre, brought me to the festival, and I loved it. She was also involved in Marblehead, so we went there too, but that one, you know, I don't even think it's in existence. Then when I met Andre, she just loved chamber music, so we started first going to 7 and then 11, and then we started buying the whole season.
And what is it that you love so much?
I just loved being able to hear the parts of the chamber music, and that it seemed to lift one's soul. One of the first years that I came was David's first. I loved his programming, liked him individually. The way the setup was in the RAA, well, you had to fight for your seats first. When I got on the board, that was one of the first things that I was on a committee that helped change that so that there was reserved seating. Thank God. Anyway, we like to be up front, but always behind Phil Cutter.
Pretty much a full-time job in those very early years with the founders, too.
Yeah.
So it's to find able-bodied people to move pianos and to raise money and to do everything. And obviously it evolved somewhat by the time you came on board, but there was still full-time.
I had heard that they had been looking for a venue for years. And with my background in finance, but also construction, my father was a building contractor. So what we did was first a survey of all the things that they had looked at over the years. And I must confess that at first I was a little bit biased to, since I lived in Gloucester, to doing something with Gloucester Stage Company, because I knew they were looking for something too. But I quickly realized people in Rockport really wanted to be in Rockport. Well, they had looked in Ravenswood and at Windover, and also that they really wanted to be downtown. So we sort of drew a circumference waterfront area here and started looking. And we came across 2 properties, and one was the blacksmith shop. We spent $20,000 trying to figure out whether we could do something with that, which was a lot of money for us in those days. We wouldn't do it there because it would need new pilings, and it really wasn't high enough. The building was only 30 to 35 feet high. So one day, Chris Moore called up and said, "Tom, you should look at the Haskins building. It's for sale." Well, right away I realized, well, 50 feet is much better than 35 feet, obviously. But that gave us more volume because this hall where we are is 30 feet itself.
So the fundamental thought was you were going to purchase the building and remodel it into a concert hall type facility.
Right. By the time this came around, July of 2005, we had raised some money on the board, so we had a little bit of working capital, and we started looking at it. And we got Larry Kierkegaard, the acoustician who eventually did the hall, to come and look at it. He went through it and led us to believe that, yes, this could be a wonderful concert hall. What he didn't tell us was we really needed to tear it down. We didn't.
That's what they always say, by the way, these acousticians. So the goals were high. I mean, the striking dichotomy here is that One year you're performing in a crowded art gallery with no air conditioning. The birds are flying in. Everybody's sweating.
Right.
3 years later, the new hall is built.
Well, wasn't...
Well, I mean, from the time you purchased the building and it was built, I mean, the vision was there, let's say.
The vision was certainly there.
Yeah.
And the vision built over the years.
There's a lot of volunteer power besides you that had to be part of all of that, and the meetings and the knowledge and requests for proposals from umpteen architects and acousticians and designers and this, that, and the other.
Sort of like a puppy dog sale. We all got more accustomed to it as the years went along, that we all started imagining what this could be. So within the board, we formed this venue oversight committee, comparable functions to the board, but centered around the building, imagining and building the building and raising the money for the building. So there was a steering committee, there was a campaign steering committee, there was a legal committee, there was a very important architectural committee. So what was good was that there was an organization to begin with, that the board, I happened to come in just at the right time. All the pieces were there. There was more money on the board than anyone had thought. There was more talent on the board. People who had good architectural sense, good historic sense. So one key decision was in picking the architect. And, we had a pretty big committee, and John and Barbara Sparks and Molly and John Burns were very active in that committee. Still at that time, we thought we could salvage the Haskins. It wasn't until we really got into it that we realized we had to take it down. One of the committees we started to form, and Mike Pardee was very helpful in this area, in public relations and things. But we decided that we had to be our own public relations, that we couldn't afford a public relations consultant. So, Mike gave us guidance, but we were all out there working. So many people did so much. I remember after a couple of opening night concerts, we would schlep everything over here to have the reception in the Haskins building. We would do informative fundraisers in the building. That was very, very important. And using the space, and we would talk about how it would be transformed and that kind of thing.
One of the early stories that I heard about Rockport music when I got here was a fateful night, I think in 2006, when the decision was going to be made about the building, and I think there was the night of a stock market crash.
Yeah. Well, that was actually 2008.
Oh, excuse me.
And
that's right.
It was right after Lehman Brothers had collapsed. They collapsed on the 15th. Our board meeting was on the 18th. So we had just come through a lawsuit. We had beaten back the lawsuit, but we had to buy that person out. And then the market starts to collapse. So we gathered to decide whether we would go ahead or not. And that was on September 18th of 2008, just 3 days after. In any event, we were all nervous. Coming in, I think nervous is the right way. There weren't factions or anything, but there were sentiments, of course. After much discussion, we did vote to proceed. And the vote, which was unanimous, I'm happy to say. We felt that it was either now or never, and that we had to take a leap of faith and we took the leap of faith together. At that point, we only had $12.5 million of the $20 million we thought we would need. In the end, we needed 22, but
Who's counting?
Who's counting, right? We made it. That's the thing. And it was the right decision.
A moment where you could see this fully realized and done and visiting concerts here. And did you feel like that? Or did you feel it was just this sort of idea thing that was just with this hunk of concrete and a construction crew going on here?
We had the renderings, and Alan Jocelyn, who was picked as the architect, had done a sketch showing this very window from the beginning, and it was part of his presentation. During that whole period, I was very impressed by the professionalism of the people we were working with. We hired consigli, and these people really knew about constructing a building of this size. There was also John Sparks, who went to all those meetings.
Right.
I went to the meetings.
John was on the board of trustees at the
He
time.
was on the board at that point in time. And he took it because he lived in Rockport, he knew the town, he appreciated the town. He took it on himself to write up a summary each week to tell the merchants on the street what was coming next. And so we didn't have the work slowdowns because of angry neighbors or things like that. It was an invaluable service.
Yeah.
And it kept the board informed too.
So things moved along, and I remember there were sort of trial balloon concerts, you might say, that the acousticians and others wanted to have. And I remember a cleaning crew in this building cleaning up all the dust and everything. Nothing wasn't 100% finished. There was a large scaffolding outside this window, et cetera, et cetera. And, but we heard music. And it was, was that your first experience hearing music?
It was before the Hard Hat concert. We had just gotten these seats in. There had been a whole thing with getting them from Ecuador to here. Ecuador, they were manufactured and they were tied up in customs. And then it was for a small group of people, probably just the board. And it seemed like David spontaneously got up on the stage and started to play. What happened was everybody just stopped, sat down, listened, and I would say there was tears in everybody's eyes. There were tears in my eyes.
Yes.
I know that.
Yeah.
That was the moment, Tony, when it moved from being a construction site to being a concert hall. That first hearing David play on this stage.
The edification of seeing it happen, that must be something very special for you.
Well, it is. It's been one of the defining experiences of my life. Well, I think of all the times I've sat in the hall since then and just loved every concert. And it is the interaction, it's the close proximity. Larry got the acoustics right. Alan designed a beautiful building. You were talking about the window. There was so much worry that sound would come in or that sound would go out through the window. And finally, I think it was Alan said, just think of an airport with those big glass windows. You don't hear those jets out there.
Right. And I think these are the same source, so the same design.
The same, that's where they got it. So, then everybody relaxed after they heard that.
Yeah.
One thing that stands out was on opening night, James Oistrich from the New York Times, the music critic, was here.
Yep.
And at intermission, he took me aside and said, Tom, this building is the most finished opening night experience that I've ever had. Which, with all that sawdust 2 months earlier, was wonderful to hear. Yeah. And he also gave us a great musical review.
He did, yes.
For
Yeah.
that.
But if you were to offer 30 seconds or a minute here of advice to anybody who wants to have a hall like this, and believe me, they're out there, because they call us up and they come and visit, what would you say to them?
I guess at different point, I mean, people have asked me that over the last 10 or 11 years. And so my answer over time has changed a little bit. But at this point, I would say you really have to listen to the community, what the community wants. And the community may be the board and what their predilections are. And I sort of, because they're the ones who are going to make it happen. And, you know, we were only a $250,000 a year organization, but there was such a committed group, and they loved, and I was one of them, I still am, as you know, lovers of chamber music.
Yes.
And so there was that. But then you had to be sensitive to an even bigger community. All these halls have to really be tied to their geography and where they are. And this one, I feel humbled to have been part of something that I think will go on for generations, and it's brought so many thousands of people joy and meaning in their lives. And that's a great feeling to have been part of that. Mm-hmm. But it's going stronger than ever, which is a credit to the people who came after and the people who came before.
That's very true. And it's, in my opinion, that is what makes Rockport music so strong. Have you share your memories with us and everything.
Tony, thank you.
Great.